Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Alex, and I am a real estate investor. And today I have a video sharing with you, my experiences with the Section 8 program and from a landlord's perspective, the pros, the cons, should you do it, that sort of thing. So, without further ado, let's get into it. All right. So, Section 8 program for landlords. So, the pros and cons. The proof, promise, and plan of the video. Proof, why listen to me? Definitely not Grant Cardone, but I've been investing in real estate since, 2019 or so. I've got 12 units. Um, Over half of my units are on Section 8 currently, probably about 70%. And I've been through quite a few Section 8 tenants, and I've been through this process several times. So just, again, I'm not Grant Cardone, but here's my experience, and hopefully you find this valuable. The promise. So by the end of this video, you will understand the pros and cons of the Section 8 and be able to decide if it's right for you. The plan, basically, what is it? How does it work? How do we set it up? The second section, why do I do it? Why do I personally do it? And then the third section is it for me, right? How do I decide if it's for me? So starting with what is Section 8? Section 8 is a government housing choice voucher program through HUD, and it essentially guarantees all or a portion of the tenant's rent based on their income, and the zip code and everything. So that is what it is. And what is Section 8 not? So you need to understand that Section 8 guarantees the rent, but they don't guarantee the tenant in any way, shape, or form, right? If they damage the unit, if they do drugs in the unit or grow drugs in the unit, like none of that is, has nothing to do with the rent. So Section 8 does not guarantee that in any way, and that's important to understand. So what's the process look like if you did decide to go down this route? So first, your unit must pass a housing inspection. It's not a crazy inspection. They just want to make sure like the unit is totally clean, ready to go. There's no damage. There's no leaky faucets. These are quality apartments. It doesn't need to be like 2024 tile, stainless steel appliances, nothing like that. But it has to be a good unit, safe, clean, habitable, no defects. The lease with your tenant must be a 1 year lease. And then the kind of the paperwork side of things, you must submit a RFTA, and that stands for Request for Tenancy Approval. Just it's a little packet you have to fill out. And then another step in this process here is you're going to be in communication with the tenant's caseworker. Make sure to confirm the amount of the tenant's voucher. I have personally made that mistake in the past, where basically I rented to a Section 8 tenant, and the first month comes and the housing only pays like $200 out of the 1,200. I'm like, oh, okay, we have a problem here. So definitely confirm that the amount of the voucher covers the whole rent or whatever you're expecting it to cover. Then also you're gonna have to fill out like a W-9 ACH form for the housing department to send you money. You have to sign a lease with the tenant. Send that to the housing, that sort of thing. So nothing too complicated here. Here's just a picture of the RFTA. There's another page, just basic information on the property. Who's paying for the utilities, that sort of thing. Really nothing too crazy. And so if you're looking at doing a Section 8, lease or getting a housing voucher for one of your units, how is the rent amount calculated? And that's kind of a big question. So I copy and pasted this. So in accordance with the federal regulation, housing authorities set the payment standards that are between 90% and 110% of the small area fair market rents. The payment standard is the maximum amount of assistance a family can receive. So basically it's between 90 and 110% of this SAFMRS. So right here. So small area fair market rents, which are published annually by HUD. So they go into each individual zip code, and then they subdivide that by the number of bedrooms, and they basically set the max amount that the voucher can be. And here I just screenshotted. This is for Dubuque County, Iowa. Again, breaks it down by zip code and the size of the apartment based on bedrooms. So an efficiency apartment, a 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, and a 4-bedroom apartment in 52001 can pay up to 1580. So knowing that information, how it's kind of calculated, how it works, how can you benefit from this? So I'd say the number one way that you can benefit, or that I try to benefit from it, is you definitely want to look for discrepancies in what you could rent that apartment for and what Section 8 is willing to pay. So again, they kind of set like market rent for that area, but they do it by the zip code first of all, and then also like you can get up to 110% in some cases. So, but they do it by the zip code, and zip code is not a precise tool for determining what the fair market rent of a apartment is, right? So, for example, in the same zip code, I'm sure you know it in your hometown, there is a street that's really crappy run down, and there's a street that's really nice, right? In the same zip code, but under the um under the chart there, those both fall into the exact same little cell, and so they both get 1580 for a 4-bedroom, right? So look for units that are like, hey, like I couldn't, on the open market, I probably couldn't rent that unit for like 1580. So look for things like that. The second way it definitely benefits you, or I try to use to benefit, is you get a greater pool of tenants who are able to, or willing to, or want to rent your apartment, right? So I open up my units to people on Section 8 and not on Section 8, and it's just the greater number of people who are then applying, I can then be pickier, or I get better, higher quality tenants, and I get to choose the best possible person. Three is you can also definitely fill units much faster. So part of that is that there's literally just a larger group of people who can rent that apartment and want to rent it. But another part of that is that these vouchers that the tenants get, they expire, so they have a they have a time limit on them, and definitely not every landlord will accept it. So they have this voucher; it's about to expire, and there's not like a ton of options for them, honestly, because, like I said, not every landlord accepts it. So only a certain number of units allow Section 8. So the tenants do a lot of the times want to act quickly, and they act with a sense of urgency, and they get you the documents that you ask for, and they get you the references, and the communication's good and thorough and precise, and I really enjoy that, and it definitely will decrease the number of days of vacancy you have in your units. And then the fourth thing here is, this can definitely be a positive or a negative, but you do get additional inspections. You get additional eyes on the property. I'm out of state landlord that I manage from afar, so I normally have to pay inspectors or handymen or whatever to go look through the property and kind of give me a condition report. And this is just an additional yearly, person walking through the apartment. They're going to check for any leaks, anything damaged, and they are going to catch things before they become bigger, more expensive, more costly issues, which is definitely good. The downside is there's like so much gray area, and so much depends on what inspector is walking through your house. Like sometimes if that inspector's having a bad day, they could just like make you replace a window for no reason, or something crazy. So that's a potential downside. But the potential upside is it's more people putting eyes on that unit, finding potential problems before they become a bigger problem. And this just how my experience has been. This is my current breakdown roughly. It's about 70% of my tenants are on Section 8, 30% are not. My units with Section 8 do have higher rents a little bit for sure. So that's been a positive for me. The units with Section 8, they do require a little bit more management time when I break down like how I'm spending my time in each one of my units. The units that do accept Section 8, they end up taking a little bit more time, and that's because of two main reasons. I think number one is definitely the additional, government bureaucracy, red tape you have to go through dealing with the inspectors or caseworkers or filling out their documents or stuff like that. So that's one layer, additional layer. And then two, in general, and definitely this is not like every single tenant who's on Section 8, but in general, like if I had to make a very broad generalization, these tenants are a little bit needier, I would say. And it's kind of just human nature, right? Doesn't mean they're bad people at all, but like if you think about something you're spending money on, or you buy a bicycle and you spend a lot of money on it, and you're putting your own money into it, you're probably going to take really good care of that bicycle, and you're going to make sure the bearings are oiled, and you're going to park it on the kickstand and you're not going to leave out in the rain. But if somebody gives you a free bike, something you have no money in, maybe you don't use the kickstand, you just throw it in the grass and you let it get rained on and stuff like that. So these units have a little bit more maintenance. Maybe the tenants are a little bit needier. So it's definitely not major. It's definitely not crazy, but it is just a slightly more management. And then also the units that do accept Section 8, they do tend to get filled the fastest because, like I said before, you have more potential tenants, and those tenants with those Section 8 vouchers, they're acting with a sense of urgency. So, something huge here. Here's a very common mistake that I see, and other people have disastrous results with Section 8 that I want to warn you of here. So they kind of have that mindset of, hey, the rent is guaranteed, so it's like I don't really need to do that much of a background check, right? I'm going to get my rent no matter what. And that is true, but there are other bad things that can happen that have nothing to do with whether you get the rent or not, right? So they could trash your apartment, they could do drugs, they could grow drugs in your apartment, right? So a background check is extremely important for sure. So for me, I do the literal exact same process that I do for a non-Section 8 tenant, for a Section 8 tenant. So the most important things here for me, I want to talk to the previous landlords. If possible, I want to talk to the last 3 landlords. The current landlord can sometimes like not really reveal all the negatives of that tenant to kind of get them for you to accept them and they move out, that kind of thing. So I like to try to talk to the last 3. And I also try to like ask landlord questions to landlords, right? So a lot of the times you'll find people put their best friend as a reference for the previous landlord or something. So you kind of need to talk the lingo or ask them questions, and you can kind of feel out like, is this person actually a landlord? And like a lot of times you'll get that vibe like this person has no idea, and it's a high likelihood that this person's lying and they're not who they say they are. So that's another way I like to screen. Definitely call employers too, like, hey, like, how long has this person been here, and get whatever information they'll give you. Like, do they show up on time? Have they ever been promoted? Have you given them a raise recently? Like, that sort of thing. So kind of just gives you another insight of what type of person they are. Are they the type of person who is moving up the ladder and like they're doing good and stuff? So that's important. The personal requirements, again, this is for you. Have this in your own documents written down. What will you accept? Smokers, evictions, do you accept pets? What income requirements do you have? So even if they have Section 8, you require some sort of income still because they have to pay the utilities, or maybe they have to pay a portion of the rent. So just have that written down and be consistent. And then always background and credit check. So a lot of people skip this with Section 8, and a lot of people kind of think you don't need a credit check because the rent's already paid. But in my opinion, your credit score reflects or is correlated to a lot more than just your ability to pay the rent on time. It also highly reflects like how you treat the apartment and just like how easy you are to work with, honestly. And definitely this is not the case for everybody, but it's a really good measure for just like broad strokes. This person with a 750 credit score, those people just tend to treat my units very well, and they tend to be very nice people, and they tend to be very low management, easy to get along with. And all the people who, not all, definitely, I shouldn't say that, but the people who tend to have lots of problems and they treat their unit really rough, maybe they have lower credit scores. Definitely not the case with everybody. There are amazing people who have low credit scores, but if you're just looking at like broad trends and you're kind of like guessing because you're about to sign a 12-month lease with people, so I still definitely care very much about the credit of the person. And then also the background check, for sure. You want to make sure, well, I like to make sure no violent crimes, no evictions, no nothing like that. So have a good idea of who you're allowing to rent your unit. So again, kind of just a recap, pros and cons. Pros, definitely there's a high demand for this, and you'll rent units faster, potentially for more rent. And based on zip code, bedroom count, that sort of thing, you do get that additional security that the government's paying the rent. So they're my most consistent tenant, right? So far, pretty much never been late. They just immediately, you wake up that day and they ACH'd it into your bank account. So that's cool. And it kind of alleviates that like headache of chasing tenants for rent money. So that is very nice. That's pretty huge. The cons, you can still totally get bad tenants, and you're on the hook for that. You still definitely have to screen them well. You're not protected against damage. So again, you need to screen the tenants just like you would if they are not on Section 8. And then again, these tenants in general, this is again a broad generalization. Some of these tenants can have a little bit less respect for the property. Just again, they're not bad people. It's just human nature, how we incentivize people when you give someone something for free versus when they pay for it. Just human psychology, just is what it is. And then there is the additional red tape and government bureaucracy that you have to deal with too. So it's not crazy, but it is something. It's something to basically take into account. So the last step here is deciding if it's right for you. And I broke this down into two questions for what I see is like the two like needles that swing back and forth. So the first question is, would you say you personally value, squeezing out a little bit more rent and getting a little bit more money every single year for that unit? Or would you more so lean towards like, hey, I just kind of want this to be a little less management, a little less headache, a few less phone calls, that sort of thing. So if you just write this down for yourself. If you lean more towards more rent, less vacancy loss, write a 1. If you lean more towards, less management, 3. So scale 1 to 3, 2 being neutral. And then the next question is how much do you value that additional security of the guaranteed rent? So is this something that's like really weighing heavy on your mind and you're worried about tenants paying rent and stuff? And that additional security means you can sleep better at night. Like that's huge. Like if that's the case for you personally, then you'd be more on the 1 in this 1 to 3 scale. And then if it's like a neutral, like yeah, it's nice, but it's not super important to me. Okay, you're a 2. And then if you're just super confident in your ability to screen tenants and it's never been a problem for you, you don't really care about that, then you'd write down a 3 for you. So essentially you can just add those two numbers up, and if your score is 2 to 3, then you should definitely strongly consider Section 8. It might be a good fit for you. You might get a little bit more rent and you get a little more security, so that's definitely cool. And if you're a 5 to 6, you add your numbers up, and hey, maybe it's not the best fit for you. That's okay. There are plenty of strategies in real estate. So but just kind of a simple framework that I tried to boil it down into like two main needles. Like, is the needle lean this way here, so something to consider. And that is my own experience and knowledge about Section 8 and why I choose to do it. As my units come up, I usually just offer them for both, and um, a lot of them they're tending to be more and more Section 8, to be honest with you, which I'm okay with. You get a little more rent, and it's just kind of a good fit for me right now. So that's perfect. If this interests you at all and you'd like to invest together, let me know. You can see my email. You can call me, text me. There's a phone number for you there on the screen. And there's just something so beneficial in my mind about partnering with somebody. You have something that I want, I have something you want. We come together, and it's 1 plus 1 equals more than 2, right? Equals 3, equals 4, equals 5. So every time I've partnered with somebody in the past, I've learned something, benefited in some way, and I've grown for sure. So I want to continue on that trend, and hopefully you do too. And if you view it the same way, then I think we might be a good partner. So reach out and let's see. So let me know what you guys want to see on the next video. Hopefully you took something from this one, and be sure to share it with a friend.